It's already October? All right, it's October 2023. So that means on this episode of 30 Years Ago This Month, we are going to be talking about October 1993. But before we begin, I have a bone to pick with all of you. When was somebody going to tell me that there was a typo in last month's episode? So instead of September, it said September. My wife had to point it out to me. Pretty sure she's going to leave me now. But luckily this month is easier to spell, so let's talk about October. Top albums. What were the number one albums for this month in America in 1993, according to the Billboard charts? For the first week of October 1993, it began the same as it ended last month, where the number one was the album In Pieces by Garth Brooks. But for the second week of October 1993, we had a new number one album in the country, and it was a huge deal. Not just for the record-buying public at large, but more importantly, for old head, young head himself. And that was In Utero, the third album from Nirvana. And the follow-up to the massive and highly influential and game-changing Nevermind album. And it was only number one for 1 week because really, if you remember the vibe back in 1993, the album came out. Some people thought it was fucking great, but I think a lot of people were hoping for more of the same. And when that isn't what we were getting, the record sales kind of went, oh. And waiting in the wings to take back his spot, you guessed it, weeks 3 and 4 of October, the number one album in America, Garth Brooks, In Pieces. But I think because October was one of those weird months where I think there were 5 Fridays of the month or some shit like that, there's a 5th number one album for the final week of October, and that was the album Bat Out of Hell 2, Back into Hell from Meatloaf. And it's funny because I remember sitting at home watching MTV when they premiered the music video for I Would Do Anything for Love, But I Won't Do That. And I clearly remember watching it going, nobody's gonna fucking buy this. And of course, as we all know, I was absolutely right about nothing. And if you thought Bat Out of Hell 2 Back into Hell was hot, just wait until you hear The Hot 10. I'm just kidding. The Hot 10 this week is pretty dull. But let's just try to go through it quickly, okay?
At number 10, we have Shy with Baby I'm Yours. I do not remember that song at all. At number 9, we have Soul Asylum with Runaway Train, Never Going Back. At number 8, we have Toni Braxton with another sad song, another song that I do not remember. At number 7, Michael Jackson is Still There with Will You Be There? I guess so. At number 6, UB40 with Can't Help Falling in Love. Holy crap, that song stuck around for a very long time. At number 5, we have Janet Jackson with If, as in if there were better songs in the top 10, I would be more enthusiastic about this. Number 4, Billy Joel, The River of Dreams, In the Middle of the Night. Number 3, Tag Team, Whoop, there it is. Number 2, Sisters with Voices with Right Here, Human Nature / Downtown. And at number 1, we have Mariah Carey with Dream Lover.
All I Want for Christmas is a better top 10. Movies! A very interesting month for movies, ladies and gentlemen. Some movies I remember, some movies I don't. Plenty of movies I don't really give a shit about. And of course, because there were 5 Fridays this month in 1993, there are 5 weeks of number one movies. The number one movie for the first week of October 1993, if you had come to me with this title and these actors, I would have told you, I don't even think it's a real movie. Malice with Alec Baldwin and Nicole Kidman. Remember absolutely fucking nothing about this movie. For the second and third week of 1993, the number one movie in America was Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes. 2 actors that I absolutely fucking love. But for some reason, I am just not a fan of this movie. I even watched it like a year ago just to make sure, is it really not a movie? Because I love pretty much everything Stallone did 80s, 90s wise, even the worst of the worst. I think they're great. But there's something about Demolition Man that is bad in a bad way, but very well done, just not good. But that's just, one old head's opinion. But I guess for me, it is worth watching just to hear Sylvester Stallone say the line, "You're the guy I saw outside of Taco Bell." For the 4th week of October 1993, the number one movie in America was The Beverly Hillbillies. I guess a lot of people saw it. It was number one. I don't think I've ever watched the movie all the way through, nor do I want to. And for the 5th week of October 1993, I saw this one in the theater, and I thought to myself, that was a nice, fun kind of a way to waste a couple hours. It was fine. Little did I know that many years later it would become the entire identity of thousands of Hot Topic goths. Yes, the nightmare before Christmas. Once again, 15-year-old Younghead did not have his finger on the pulse at all because he was like, who the fuck's gonna want to see this? And woo! But of course, the movie from October 1993 that I want to talk about, I talked a little bit about it on the last episode because of the soundtrack, and that is Judgment Night. Starring Emilio Estevez, Cuba Gooding Jr., Jeremy Piven, Stephen Dorff, and for some reason, Dennis Leary as the villain, which is interesting. And I have to admit, I do hate him in the movie, so good job. Judgment Night came out on October 15th, and me and my buddies saw it in the theater because of the strength of the fucking soundtrack, which I talked about last time, which is an absolute fucking classic. Now, I remember enjoying the movie, but thinking it didn't really live up to the promise of such an amazing soundtrack. Now, over the years, I have warmed up to the movie, and now I quite enjoy it, but I think I kind of enjoy it more on a hidden gem of 90s movies that people don't talk about all the time, but those of us who were there and know, we know that movie. Plus, I'm going to be honest, I love Emilio Estevez in everything.
Golf clap? Golf clap.
Album releases! All right, we got a lot of albums to talk about this month, so let's get down to business. On October 4th, Wolverine Blues from Entombed came out. This was actually my introduction to Entombed, which is probably why I prefer it over the earlier two Entombed albums. I still really like those, but this is a fucking badass album for me. Obviously, they would slow things down and get a little more groovy and end up with a sound that a lot of people would later dub death and roll, which I guess that's fine. I mean, I would categorize this under It Fucking Rules, Shut Up. On October 12th, Come On, Feel the Lemonheads came out. This is clearly not the original. This is the 30th anniversary version of this album. I don't even know what number of Lemonheads album this is, nor do I really know any other Lemonheads album. It's very weird because I remember this coming out. I even had some friends that were into it. But honestly, it wasn't until about 10 years later that I somehow stumbled upon a CD copy at a used CD store and decided to get it, and something really connected with me with this album. And I went to listen to the previous Lemonheads album and the one after it, and neither one of them did anything for me. So this is one of those weird albums where I fucking love every second of this album. I can't tell you why, or why I don't really like anything else by the Lemonheads, but Come On, Feel the Lemonheads is just amazing pop songwriting, and it's got this cool kind of sarcastic melancholy, maybe. Fuck, I don't know how to. I was going through some things, and this album was there for me. Come On, Feel the Lemonheads. Of course, that album was nowhere on my radar because also on October 12th, the second album from Pearl Jam came out. I don't know if I like this cover better or the original CD one. I think I like the original CD one better. Just leave that one up there. But yeah, Versus, which I remember the build up to it because I was a fan of the first Pearl Jam album, and they announced this one was going to be called 5 Against 1, and then it turned out they changed the title to Versus, or just no title whatsoever. Even, there's, I think on that one, is there one on that picture? I don't know. It's not there yet. Obviously, I don't have pictures just floating in the air. Maybe one day. But just like In Utero, I was actually super pleased with Versus because Pearl Jam didn't just give us the same old shit again, but it's still a very memorable and very well done album with a shitload of killer fucking tracks. You can blame albums like these for when a band puts out a new album that's very similar to one they already did, and I'm all like, come on guys, we can do better. I know, I've seen Pearl Jam do it, but also Pearl Jam have put out some real snore fests. Okay, this is one of the two where there's discrepancies in the release date. Not really a discrepancy in this case. It just came out earlier in the UK than it did in the US. Didn't come out until January of 94, apparently, in the US. But I want to talk about it now. On October 18th, Heartwork from Carcass, one of my favorite albums of all time. Amazing fucking album from an amazing fucking band. Totally blew me away when I first heard it. It was one of the coolest fucking records I had ever heard at the time. I was fully into the death metal thing already, but I was always searching for bands that were doing things a little bit different. And man, I'm just gonna just hold it here for like a minute and just look at it. Anyway, maybe I'll talk about it again for January 1994. It's that good. All right, back to the US. October 19th, the debut album from Black Moon entered a stage. This is a very underrated East Coast hip-hop 90s classic. Black Moon were a group, well, I think they still are. I think they disbanded or disgrouped. What do rap groups do? Then they got back together. So they did a couple albums in the 90s, one in the early 2000s, and then nothing for a while. But I think they did one very recently. But this album, absolute fucking classic. I love this album. Unfortunately, it didn't do very well. It didn't really turn a lot of heads that were, I guess, in the mainstream hip-hop world. But I think fans of 90s hip-hop, we all know this album. Also on October 19th, I don't have this on vinyl, but I do have it on cassette. The 15th album from Rush, Counterparts. Since I have a cassette, let's take a look at it. Cassettes, they're fantastic. This is one of those ones that had like the full-on back on it. Look, let's just unfold it. Why does it feel so good to unfold these? Maybe it's because you don't get to unfold them a lot anymore, and it just has a nice nostalgic feeling. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'll start another series of videos where it's like just me unfolding and refolding cassette innards. I really like this album. At the time, it was interesting because the single off the album was the song Stick It Out. And it really did seem like, Rush are trying to fit in with the heavier stuff that's happening now. But in the context of the album, it doesn't feel that way. Just feels like another Rush song in the progression of their sound. And there's a lot of fucking great songs on Counterparts. Maybe one day they'll reissue it on vinyl because the versions that they've put out so far are very expensive over on the Discogs. All right, here's the other date discrepancy, but I'm blaming the band or whoever works for the band out there because Sepultura, Chaos AD. Now, I saw a bunch of posts last month saying that, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of Chaos AD. But if you go to Sepultura's website and find the album, it says the release date is October 19th, 1993. So I'm sticking with that because I have a feeling that's where the research went in, and maybe it's the person that runs their social media that saw people posting shit from Wikipedia, and they're like, yes, 30th anniversary. And meantime, their website says otherwise. And Oldhead says otherwise. I don't even remember. Whatever. This album fucking rules. I would say that this is the best album to come out in October 1993. There's a lot of great albums in 1993, but man, this fucking album. This is any fucking song, and it's getting cranked up, and I'm focusing on whatever song that is. This is an absolute banger. I'm preaching to the choir, right? Not done with October 19th yet. We also have Inhaler from Tad. This is not my favorite Tad album, but this was my introduction to Tad. Probably a lot of people's because, the whole grunge Seattle explosion, and then Tad puts out this album. But this is a fucking banger of an album. I look at Tad as one of the quintessential grunge groups when it comes to what I think grunge is supposed to sound like. Early Soundgarden, Nirvana, Bleach, Tad. It's all stuff that for some reason I hear it and I go, that's grunge. Of course, they got signed to a major, and this album did not do very well at all. And then, like many of the bands from the 90s, they were soon dropped. But here we are, 30 years later, talking about how fucking awesome Inhaler is. So, way to go, Tad. All right, finally, October 26th, the third album from Malevolent Creation, Stillborn, Malevolent Creation, great fucking death metal band, 90s death metal, but for some reason oddly overlooked a lot of the time when you hear discussions about 90s death metal, and I think they 100% need to always be included in the discussion because over the years they've continued to put out albums and they're all bangers. This one included. 93 was such a huge fucking year for death metal that I think maybe this album got a little bit buried under other ones. I don't know. But if you don't know this album or this band, do me a fucking favor. You can just go ahead and leave the video now and go listen to Stillborn by Malevolent Creation.
Look at that. It's a VHS.
We're almost done with October 1993, but before we go, I have a VHS to talk about. On October 16th, Roadkill from Skid Row was released. And it comes with these nifty 3D glasses. Look, they say Skid Row, and then on the inside, you know, I mean, if you can't figure that out, those are the kind of people that were listening to Skid Row. They don't know what side of their face glasses go on. But the glasses are here because the very first part of the video is the music video for the song Psycho Love, which is in 3D. And honestly, maybe this is 45-year-old man talking, I don't know, but I watched it again earlier today, and the 3D effects are still very cool. Now, obviously, it doesn't feel like you're there, but the way that the video is done, with a bunch of overlapping and moving images, and then the footage of the band is also moving, and sometimes there's a picture within a picture. The way that it's done is very good. I don't know if you can find a 3D version out there to watch. You can just come over to my house. I got 2 pairs of glasses. But other than that, this VHS is 2 hours of what I wish more bands did back then, which is literally just film a whole bunch of shit from the tour, and then it's just a hodgepodge of fun antics from on the road and how awesome it is being in a rock band and how much fun we have, but also there's live performances and some shit in the studio. Like, I love videos like this. And I think to myself, oh man, I wish bands did more of this today. But they can't do this today. One of the things that makes these videos great is the fact that you relive how much fucking hype there was behind rock bands like Skid Row. Some places they went, they were treated like the fucking Beatles. And I have a feeling that if any band tried to make anything like this, it would be run through a whole bunch of lawyers and other bullshit and editors until finally it's like, instead of 2 hours, it's 1 hour and it's edited down to where it's no fun at all. I do wonder though, because it does have a very similar feel to a couple of the Pantera home videos. And I'm all like, did they have the same director? Or did Pantera see Oh Say Can You Scream, their Skid Row's first video, and go, we can do that better? Doesn't matter how it happened. All I know is that if I ever just want to crack open a beer and feel like I'm on tour with a band back in the heyday of heavy rock music, this is probably one of the best examples of that. I think I fucked up my eyes somehow. Okay, so finally we've reached the end. This feels like it's been a long one, has it? You're still here, so thank you for being here for this episode of 30 Years Ago this month. We've got 2 more months left for 2023/1993. So, yeah, that's all I got. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all again very soon.